When it comes to selecting learning resources to use in your online course, we have a greater range of options than ever before. We're talking case studies, reading lists, study guides, infographics, podcasts, videos, articles, and I could go on. What's more, these resources run the gamut from prepackaged to customization needed to production intensive. So how do you determine what is the best resource or mix of resources for your course? I want you to think of resource selection like a matchmaking process. So here are 5 key questions to ask of your potential learning resource to determine if it would be a good match for your learning scenario. Number 1, is it relevant to my learning objectives? For example, in a geography class that has a learner objective to recognize and identify all 50 states, a visual resource such as a map, video, or flashcards would clearly make more sense than a text or audio-based resource. Whereas, if the objective was to remember all the state capitals, a text or audio, like a song, might be a better resource. Always circle back to your objectives and ask yourself whether you have the appropriate resource to deliver on those objectives. The next question you want to ask of your learning resource is, number 2, is it suited to my target learner? We always need to remember that we are not teaching ourselves. Our educational histories, subject matter knowledge, and literacy levels, not to mention our experience and learning preferences, are likely very different from those of our students. We need to learn as much as possible about our future students and then put ourselves in their shoes when selecting resources. The third question to ask of your potential learning resource is, number 3, is it suited to the learning context or perspective of my course? For example, a video or presentation might not be ideally suited for delivering a message by itself, but it could be perfectly appropriate as a means of reinforcing a reading. Similarly, a textbook might be a good choice for a subject like algebra, where there are right and wrong answers, but less so when there's a learning scenario where there are no correct answers, many correct answers, or opinions are to be shared. The next question to ask of your potential learning resource, number 4, is it accessible to all learners? It is important to keep in mind accessibility for students with disabilities. When considering the use of video, you want to be sure that there is closed captioning so that it is accessible to individuals with hearing impairments. Students without disabilities may also enjoy the ability to see the words on the screen as it may clarify meaning or message. My daughter loves to turn the closed caption on when she's watching video. She says that when the words are said softly, she doesn't have to rewind or rewatch in order to understand what was said. A couple more tips for accessibility. Avoid the use of color to convey meaning. What do I mean by this? Don't say, click the green button to continue. This would keep a colorblind learner from being successful, and many times you don't know who these students are because they don't tell you. When you use images in your courses and infographics, you need to include alternative text that describes the image or a full text alternative that helps a learner who may be visually impaired to derive meaning from those images using a screen reader. This brings us to the 5th and final question to ask of your potential resource. Is it going to engage my learners? All other things being equal, you want to select resources that are going to do the best job of attracting and maintaining the attention of your learners. This relates to the medium itself, but also the quality of the resource and its connection to other course resources. For example, one poorly chosen video can be significantly less engaging than a well-written article. When locating and selecting learning materials, do look for alternatives to textbooks. Carry out online or library research and talk to colleagues who may have taught the same course previously. They may know of materials that would be beneficial to your students. To summarize, you want to seek out engaging resources that match your learners, your objectives, and the learning context, and that are accessible to everyone. Oh, and before you get too far down the road, you also want to ensure that the resource you are considering is available. Make sure that you consider copyright, institutional policies, and deadlines that might impact the types of learning resources you can use. Happy matchmaking!